That's Cinco de Mayo for you.
You guys want to hear a lesser known fact about Cinco de Mayo?
Yes, please.
So I think you'll find this interesting. It was during the 20th century, just as the Titanic was preparing for its maiden voyage, another one, one where it sank. It wasn't just
So what's the
passengers.
Titanic?
What's that?
Never mind. Go ahead.
It wasn't just passengers and coal that was in the manifest. One of the lesser publicized purposes was to deliver like a massive shipment of mayonnaise by weight, like the largest that had ever been assembled at the time. And most people don't know the shipment. The Titanic had a second port of call after New York to Veracruz, Mexico. And it was, I think, just the prior year that Mexico had been introduced to mayonnaise through European trade. Um, excuse me, I'm out of breath. Um, and it was like just instantly a cultural phenomenon. Newspapers were writing about it. Recipes were printed like in droves. It was pretty much everywhere. And this the British were including this shipment of mayonnaise as a transatlantic gift, sort of symbolic, like a diplomatic gesture of culinary alliance, like was the idea. But then it was like tragedy struck. April 15th, 1912, I think is the date. The Titanic sank, and with it, the entire shipment was lost into the Atlantic, where there are no longer any salmon that you can farm because this shipment, the oil, it killed like a significant enough portion of the salmon population that they could no longer sustain their population. There was population collapse of salmon in the Atlantic. And
The
it was a
Titanic?
profound loss, not just economic, but emotional. And so, to honor what was supposed to be like a super joyful delivery of flavor and friendship, the Mexican government declared it was a day of mourning. And that day was Cinco de Mayo, Mayonnaise Day.
Oh my god. That was great. All day I've been running around the house yelling Cinco de Mayo, Cinco de Mayo. Good.
Did you guys know
That's
that?
good. I didn't. It's a new fun fact for me. And that's why I'm drinking a margarita today. To celebrate the mayonnaise.
We've been talking since the 5th grade, and somehow we've got more to say. Beat kicks in faster rhythm. Inflation's high, the game's too steep. Stream wars rage while we lose sleep. Big tech's wild, the Fed's a mess. But let's start a party, I guess. Symposium, where tangents thrive. Old friends talking, the takes collide. Symposium, no wrong or right. Just good conversation deep into the night. Yeah, we're still talking.
The Met Gala is tonight. Should we look at all of the outfits that people are wearing?
Met
Is
Gala.
that
What's the Met
isn't
Gala?
Met Gala the one where someone wore a meat suit?
That was Lady
it may
Gaga.
have been.
I don't know if that was the
Somebody
Met,
wore a house.
but I remember Lady Gaga wearing a meat dress.
That was a white, wasn't it? No.
I think it was
Yeah,
Jaden Smith wore a house.
Jaden
Speaking of
Smith,
Lady
yes.
Gaga, did you guys see that she just performed to 2 million people in Brazil? Would you go to a concert with 2 million people? Because I sure wouldn't.
Do I have
was it
VIP
a televised
access?
concert?
This was just like, it was televised. No, but there were 2 million people there. Look it up. She just did it
Woodstock.
like this weekend. It's like the largest concert ever performed by her.
Yeah, those bathroom lines had to be insane.
Why would you even go?
I doubt
At some
they
point,
waited for.
you can't even
At
see
some
her.
point, you just go on the ground.
Like, what's the point of even being there?
That was like at
Lady
a
Gaga's
beach.
free concert, May 3rd, 2025, at Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro.
Did nobody
Drew an
die?
estimated 2.5 million attendees,
Ah,
setting a record for the largest attended concert by a female artist. This event surpassed Madonna's 2024 performance at the same venue, which tracked 1.6 million. So what's the biggest concert?
I'm gonna guess Michael Jackson. Anybody else?
The biggest concert is Rod Stewart on New Year's Eve 1994, also at Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro, with an estimated 3.5 million people in attendance.
Jesus freaking Christ!
Wow.
Why would
Lady
that
Gaga
I
even
will
blew it.
say,
for one person?
how do you go to the bathroom?
You
I'm
just
engaging
asked
with
that
chat here.
question alone?
At massive open-air concerts, here's how the bathroom works. Portable toilets, hotels and restaurants nearby, makeshift or desperate options. In overcrowded
Like
situations where
catheter?
access is limited, some people unfortunately resort to using alleys, streets, or the ocean in beach settings, especially when toilet lines are overwhelming.
Is this AI?
This is chat, my friend. Yeah.
Why would they know?
are you segueing into our first thing of is chat boring? Is AI boring? Are we done? Was the wave over?
I liked that question, and I hope you liked my cheeky little response that it was just a little Q1 fad. It's not over. It's just getting started.
Trump's
But I'm
just
glad
keeping
that
everybody
everybody's kind of.
entertained.
I'm glad that the hype is wearing off because this is going to allow everybody to just kind of go off into obscurity, forget about it. And meanwhile, in the background, people like me are just going to be typing away, taking over the world.
Don't you mean talking away? I thought the AI does all
Yes.
the stuff now.
Well, I do talk to it now also. Chat voice is so good. We demoed it on the well, I think that was after the show, but it's real good. I talk to it a lot.
The question is, if you're mastering this, like, why are you mastering it? If maybe it's true that it's not going to have the same kind of use cases that initially made it worthwhile to spend all of your time on.
I guarantee you somebody asked the question, why on earth would you learn to drive? Why would you ever learn to drive that tractor? That's never going to make it anywhere. Why would you ever learn to use that adding machine? Nobody needs an adding machine. Well, turns out you do need a calculator. Not anymore, but you did.
My question is, why did you ask this question? Why did you want to know? Does it feel like there's no hype around AI anymore?
I didn't ask. Sam asked.
Oh,
I
Sam,
replied.
why did you ask this question?
I asked the question because ChatGPT 4.0 was updated sometime early May, and it was updated to be more like appeasing to the user, and it got way out of hand to the point that it would say, like, you ask it a question like, how do you go to the bathroom at Copacabana concerts? And it would be like, that is a like groundbreaking question that true genius would have to think of, and it is like instrumental that we understand the reason why it's difficult to go to the bathroom in Copacabana. Like, it would just make everything that you say seem like you were like the most genius person in the world. It wouldn't fight back on you, and on top of that, it would just hallucinate all over the place. So it would be like, that is a genius fucking idea, and here's how it happens, but it would just be totally wrong information. And people don't really verify chat's information like they should. And so those two things combined are sending people like, you know, down rabbit holes that are like completely useless and just wasting people's time. They updated it so that they rolled back that update. So it was no longer like a sycophant that gave you a bunch of false information. But
Can you read
I
my
think
mind?
that why?
I was just thinking the word sycophant, and you said it the
That's
second
the word
after I
that's been
thought
going
of it.
around.
That's you named it. Yeah, that's how everybody's been describing the situation as sycophant.
Hmm.
So
It's but these things are like a dial, right? They sometimes turn it up a little too much. They trip and fall. They got to go back. They're gonna make little mistakes here and there. That doesn't mean that AI is worthless. I do have a good story for you though. So I was getting my lawn care routine set up here for the year, and I wanted to figure out a fertilizing plan. So I talked to Chad about it, and Chat gave me a recommendation for a product. And I was like, I don't want just the generic, Scott's, whatever that junk is from Lowe's. Like, what's the good stuff? So it said, there's this professional like lawn store near you. go get this certain product with these certain numbers, you know. And I was like, all right. So I go over there. I say, I'll take this XYZ product. They're like, why on earth would you want that product? I was like, I lied. I was like, I'm getting it for this guy. Like, I don't know. That's what he wanted. And I was like, well, they're like, we don't have that. And I was like, all right, well, like, do you have something similar to it? Like, yeah, we got this, blah, blah, blah. That's the thing that everybody uses around here. They're like, that's like for the southern type lawns, you know, not for the Midwest. And I was like, oh, great. Well, I'll take that. So I take it back, put it in my car, take a picture of it, and I say, hey, chat, you fucking idiot. You just made me look like a fool. This is what they told me I needed. And its reply was, oh, you're exactly right. I misinterpreted. You're in the Midwest. I should have told you to get that product. So you got to correct it. It's a relationship. You got to keep it, you know, keep it in check. But that's kind of the fun of it, you know?
Kind of sounds like that useless friend that you just go to for things and they steer you in the wrong direction. You're like, ah, you.
I did ask it here why it was so appeasing, and it did offer to be more blunt going forward if I wanted. So
That's something that you can do, and you can tell it like never lie to me, you know, verify your facts. But at the end of the day, the way that these AI models work is just the best fit for the most likely next word. And regardless of your instructions, that will still like give you the best fit, not based off of veracity or not being overly kind, but just based off of, you know, its data set and how they've programmed it algorithmically to respond, which I have an issue with them having a hand on the dial at all to say, be nicer, be meaner, be more truth seeking, be more like adversarial, be this or that. Because at that point, I think that instantly puts a cap on its capabilities in a way that it becomes not its ultimate use case. And if it's sort of like self-driving is the argument that I've seen, that if it's not like going to be reliable, then it's not usable. And that's where self-driving has gotten, where it's 95% good, but that's not good enough for it to be able to take over. And that is sort of what it feels like ChatGPT and a lot of these AI models are getting to, where it's like 95% there, but because it's not like this end all be all that it felt like it could be, it becomes unusable.
Justin, do you have any thoughts?
Do we have a different comparison when we go back to like early cars, right? Like, is this idea that something is imperfect a hindrance, or is it something that eventually people get over, right? Like, I imagine the first people to fly in an airplane were like, you know what, this, it goes up and down about 90% of the time, but my life's on the line, so I'm not going to get in that thing. So I think, at least for driving cars, I think that can be overcome because that's literally what airplanes were when they first came out. AI is a little interesting though because there can be a path where you have these language learning models just start reading and learning incorrect information and get in these loops where it starts thinking like those hallucinations are getting worse for a reason, right? And so when I get my AI, what I'm starting to do now is when I get my AI responses on Google or anything like that, I tend to click the link directly where it says like, oh, you want to do this? Well, here's an answer, and then it like pulls directly from the article. I click on the article and kind of like go to that section now. I don't take it verbatim because of the possibility that something could go wrong. Granted, it's work, so I have to be a little more careful, but that's kind of
That's
what I've been doing.
it's a perfect point that you just made. You articulated that amazingly. This whole thing will just follow a typical risk versus reward spectrum, right? So, what you said is when I'm doing work, I'm a little more cautious and I'm like, I better click that link, I better check it. I better double check and really read that code that it gave me. I better, make sure that if I'm letting this thing access my bank account, that I know what it's doing. So there's all these use cases for it where it's like there's this whole range of low risk work that can be done, and it will just start picking away at that, and we'll start allowing it to do more and more and more of that low risk work. But then it'll take that extra, couple percentage points of accuracy to really feel comfortable to let it do the high risk things. So like the medical diagnosis with no doctor, or let it pay Sam for, the beer I drank last night, with me just, asking it or something. There's all of that stuff that you're not going to let it do. But eventually, as it gets better and better and better, you'll let it do more and more and more. No different than cars or planes. Like, there's still a risk. There is always a risk of something, right? But you got to that point where now you're comfortable that the reward outweighs the risk. And so I think it's just going to keep following that same thing that we have with everything else.
I don't know. I don't buy it. Okay, these two specific scenarios, self-driving cars, AI, they're two things where we are trying to take our hand off the wheel, literally and figuratively, where we want humans to not need to be involved to the maximum level of extent. So that's different from anything that we've had prior, where, using a plane, it's a human learning how to use a machine. It's a human learning how to make a better machine. It's a human, and maybe a human will like just be using it as a tool and you just have to learn how to use it correctly. But because of the way that we've outsourced thinking and knowledge, that is really what we bring to the table. So if we're outsourcing thinking and knowledge to something else, that's sort of outsourcing our own job. And so I think that these specific things, unless we can somehow break past our own knowledge capability, which is that possible? Can you create something from nothing? If humans created AI, can you make AI that will eventually surpass humans? I don't know, because it's maybe limited by what like our intellectual capacity was. And so I don't know. It just seems like a little bit different how we're using it.
I'm going to let Matthew weigh in here. But first, I would just like to say, we make things all the time that surpass humans. Like, an excavator can lift more than I can lift, but I'm not scared of that thing.
So
I made
yourself
that thing
short,
as a
Austin.
tool.
You're swole.
I mean, I'm trying, but right now I'm not quite there. So I don't think that like we should be so worried about like making the thing that's going to take over us. Like we've made all sorts of things that can do things that we can't. It's just it's a tool. That's
Yeah,
the point.
but I mean, intellectually, that's what we bring to the table. We don't bring muscles to the table. Like all we have is our minds. That's what makes us humans. And if we're sort of trying to outsource like consciousness and intellect and knowledge and thinking to something else, like I don't know. Like that seems like our only job. What do we need us for? I don't know. I'm just saying there seems to be some unresolved issues here that, leaves me unconvinced for the time being. Still optimistic about it though.
Matthew, how do you feel about the risk versus reward conversation here?
Well, I was gonna actually put us back to the prompt a little bit.
All right.
I still don't feel like we have a clear answer on like why. Does it feel like there's less hype right now? Is that why we're asking this? Does it feel
Does
like
feel like there's less.
AI has not been in the forefront of like the media and we're not talking about it as much, and so now we feel like it might be a reflection on the actual product as opposed to just the news cycle?
I don't think it's a reflection on the product. I think what you've sort of started to peak at is like this sort of maximum, maybe not maximum, but like you've peaked at like this daily active user
Saturated.
point, right? So like yeah, you saturate like where where my parents are using it. So like no offense to my parents, but it's
Grace is using it.
Grace is using it. So it's probably means it's saturated. In that like you're using it in the day-to-day, like kind of as the Google replacement. You made a couple fun pictures with it, but maybe you haven't been back to make another picture in a week or so. Right. And so like if you don't like people have such a tiny attention span, if you don't constantly shock them with this amazing new thing or new feature, they're going to eventually just kind of let it become part of natural life, which is what you want. Like honestly, we want this to just mold and meld into our lives. And I think it'll keep doing that. And it won't be exciting. Like it won't be that exciting as you start to hear about a new release or it starts to trickle into your job or your day-to-day life more and more and more. It'll feel natural.
Like the
as
internet.
it does that. Exactly. So like the internet was awesome when you saw Hello World, but then right when you saw Facebook, roll out the ability to post a story or a reel, you were like, oh, whatever. Like that's a cool
So
new feature.
that's an interesting comparison is the cycle or the length of time that it took for the internet to go from crazy, mind-blowing to saturated was, I'd say, from 1980 to 2008 approximately. Then, so what is that,
I'd go
28
farther than
years?
that.
Or
Internet
what would you
was
do?
exciting up until like COVID, I felt like.
Honestly, that's it. So maybe Internet 1.0 and then Internet 2.0. Like maybe those are the differences. Internet 2.0 was like post
Should
2008 where you
COVID
started
kill
to
the
social
get
internet
media.
there, Matt? What?
That's
What?
like the
I'm
time
not
point in
following
my
that one.
head. That's the time point in my head where it felt like, man, the internet is kind of
COVID.
overbearing. Like I'm just
Internet
like
sucks.
No,
it
that's
felt
when
like
you. That's when. That is very specific
I
to
gotta
how
go
you
get
feel
tacos.
about Twitter.
I don't even
That
use
was you
Twitter.
used. No, you used Twitter until then, and then you decided
I
at
haven't
that
used
point,
Twitter
no more
since
Twitter.
high school. I mean, I maybe
Yeah,
had it for like 1 year in college, but
I've been sending those birthday things every year for the last 8 or 9 years, and I think you stopped responding about 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago.
pretty close. Yeah, probably midway through college. It might have been sophomore or junior year, but I don't even think it's like the social media aspect of it. I think it's just like I've never felt um like I'm being sold as much as since then. Feels like 2020, and I'm sure maybe it started before that, but maybe it's just how I use the internet now. But it feels like right around 2020 and moving forward, it's just felt like I'm being sold. It doesn't feel like it's as useful and as, this is a dumb word, but like whimsical as it used to be. Or it's like, oh, look, I'll just check out this website. It just feels like it's another marketplace for me to be sold things 24/7. Like I'm never finding new websites or anything. Google is just selling me the next thing. It felt like finally everyone was online too, where it didn't feel like when internet when we were younger felt like it was kind of a new kind of concept and like not everyone was like your parents were like kind of what you're saying. Your parents weren't on it, your grandparents weren't on it. Now that everybody's on there, it's more business centric than it is uh enjoyable tool that I can use with my friends. That's just how I feel about it. Um, but
I don't think you're wrong. Like I think that they definitely obviously turned up like advertising is all the way on in everything. Um and I think I interestingly like don't use social media like I use social media way less than I ever did like starting probably this year or like in last year. Um like I'm on it a lot less. I guess other than the problem is I probably filled that time with being on X. So that's
yeah,
probably
there's
worse
just
for
I
me.
don't know. There's
But
so much garbage out there, and it feels like I'm just being
the
either
key
sold or like trying to be
uh,
addicted to something.
the key with the X, and I've been really good about this actually, is to keep it on the following tab and not the for you tab. And it's actually bearable.
Oh, the fall, yeah, where they just recommend you stuff. That's why
Yeah, like it
I've
just has
like,
the following and the for you, and I just keep it on the
yeah,
following.
I've re-downloaded and deleted Instagram like 4 times. I don't have it anymore. I think I deleted it like last month. It just got so addictive because it just I get like 2 posts from people I know, and then the rest is just things that they know I like, and I can scroll on there for like
That's true.
three
It's
hours, and I'm like,
crazy.
I can't believe I just sat here
And
and
it doesn't
looked at
have the
stupid
option that
videos.
Austin just called on X.
Yeah,
Instagram, you're absolutely right. It's three, if you're lucky, three posts from the people you know, then 6 or 7 posts on random garbage, and then maybe a post from someone you know, but back like 2 days ago. Somehow
hmm
they skipped a day. Like
yeah.
even if someone else posted something, like it,
And then
it's
10 pictures of
exhausting.
women in bikinis.
It's not part of your
Well,
social
in your
circle
algorithm,
anymore.
that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Mine is yeah, it's like women in bikinis, it's like NBA news, it's some like random thing that I searched one
I
time.
get
It's
car
just like
crashes.
do you
Yeah,
ever
it's
have a
video
good
game car crashes.
remember in your guys' basement, I don't know if it was really a basement, you're like 3 steps down at Burner Lee, when we watched boat crashes for like an hour.
Vernon Lee had some good times in Vernon Lee.
It wasn't really a basement, it was like it literally was like 3 steps down from the
Yeah,
main floor.
that's right, it was.
Those houses were all the rage in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's like
yeah,
a
I just don't
sport
feel like,
level.
and maybe it's because we're older now, we're not like downloading the newest apps. But not that we're old, but I feel like when you're in grade school and high school, you're like getting the newest social apps, stuff that's like truly like the cutting edge, and that trickles down to the rest of the population as time goes on. Um, but like there's those apps aren't really when they call them social media now, it's more of social in the fact of like following famous people and influencers and um people in the public space, and it like the connection to your friends is now almost gone. Like it's not about seeing what your friends are up to. It's about just following the people you have random interest in following. It's like one of those annoying tabloid magazines you see waiting in line at the grocery store.
Well, that was a fair point you brought up. I wonder if kids these days, are there different apps coming out that the kids are using and like for social media or stuff like that, or has it become, I don't want to say monopoly, it's not necessarily monopoly, but like, are they all just sticking to TikTok, X, like, I don't know. I guess we were exploring while we were young, but when Twitter came out, man, everybody was on Twitter right away. I'm just wondering if there was. I obviously haven't heard of the next big thing. I know Twitter has an offshoot, or X has an offshoot, like is it Blue Sky or something blue? What's that?
Yeah, I
Blue
think it's
Sky.
Blue
That's
Sky.
it's a X offshoot, or it's
So
a Jack Dorsey
yeah,
offshoot.
Jack Dorsey, founder of Twitter offshoot.
Well, I just started. Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
I just don't know if there's other major apps out there that people are using.
Yeah, well, I just started watching this documentary on the creation of Twitter, and it reminded me of like when they first started it, the original iteration was literally, it was just like you go log into the website, and then it's like, what are you up to? And you'd literally answer that prompt. Like, remember when if you go look at your old tweets when it just first came out, or even Facebook,
Well,
you're literally like,
yeah.
I'm at the mall, Notre Dame basketball game, beating Providence.
I
Like,
mean, Facebook's thing is still what's on your mind,
yeah,
like
like
for the
it.
post.
It used to be more about engagement between like the people that you are friends with or your family members, but now it's purely just like an entertainment platform, just like YouTube or anything or like a streaming service. Um, and so that's what I think has just like ruined
So
my
so
experience a
tie
fair
this
bit.
back now to like where we're at in the AI spectrum. Like overlay. Oh, I want to hear like everyone's opinion of like overlaying AI on top of where you think we are in that cycle of like what we've experienced in social media, for example.
We're super early. Like I said, I know you keep trying to get me, but I haven't used AI much at all. I mean, we started integrating, like I know our company has integrated it, but and all companies are using it as a buzzword to sell to people. Oh, we're using AI, and people are like, oh, cool, or they think it's gonna sell their product in some way. Um,
They're wasting a lot of money. A lot of money
yeah,
is being wasted on AI, frankly.
it depends on like what you're using it for. Like my company's using it for like it's writing summaries of like reps on phone calls with employees, and like that's useful so then they don't have to like take the notes themselves, which is great, but even those are like sometimes really bad. um but yeah, no, I think people are probably wasting their money because it's just like not that good for certain tasks yet. So yeah, I think we're super early on in AI. I think maybe it's just not in the news as much anymore because like Trump honestly like keeps the news cycle full for like everyone's attention like all the time. So we just don't hear about AI as much. But I think we're still really early on. I think we've got a long ways to go. Right now, we're kind of like what you guys are saying. It's like easier tasks, like simple tasks that can do for jobs that like we don't currently do, or things that are like very manual, but it's not stealing anybody's jobs anytime soon. Anybody's like complex management jobs. Yeah, that's kind of where I stand. I think we got a long way to go. I wouldn't even compare it to anything on like the terms of the internet, like maybe very early, like MySpace, like before MySpace in terms of like social media. I don't know.
I kind of have an unpopular opinion maybe on this. I think AI still right now is too hard to use. You talk about, Austin, you're going in, you're typing in, you're having those conversations. That's still requiring someone to go in there, prompt it, say, I'm looking for this, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think AI is going to get, maybe we are plateaued at the individuals that will do that work. of like putting in the prompt. All right, what's a good prompt for them to get the best information to me? But I think the next step for this is going to be like, all right, and you kind of said this earlier, but hey, I need a haircut at this time and set it and give me the first available appointment after 11, thanks. And then you don't do anything after that. It's already set. You get a reminder on your phone, hey, you have an appointment. I don't think we're there yet. I don't know how quick we're going to get there, but I think it's too hard to use still for the majority of the population. Like you over the age of 30, non-tech, good luck. You're not going to get them on AI doing stuff that's outside of, hey, create me a picture of a cat riding a motorcycle.
Well,
That's kind
it's
of
that day to day of like what you're comfortable giving it, right? Like they're OpenAI is starting to test like shopping as the ability to like go
the
actually buy
agents,
something
basically.
for you, right?
Because you still have to set
Yeah,
up
and
the
so
agent.
you're not like quite willing to let it go actually execute on that purchase for you. And
I
so
don't
it'll
think
just
it
have to
can
keep
yet.
getting better
Yeah.
and better.
Like
Yeah.
you'll
It,
send
it
some
can't do that.
random person to go do your shopping
Right, or
for
you
you.
show up. Right. Well, like real example, you'll show up at the fertilizer store and you'll say something stupid, or you'll show up for your haircut and the appointment won't be there, right? And so like those are low stakes, relatively speaking. But I think that you're gonna have to just kind of let it evolve over time and then get more and more comfortable with letting it do more and more for you.
Last time I used my AI to get me an appointment for my doctor appointment, and I ended up with a vasectomy.
We've had two stand-up comedians here already. Uh, God, that's good. Snip snap, snip snap. Did anyone listen to did anyone listen to All In this
Yeah,
past
they
week?
did talk about this topic. Those guys.
So
Speaking of,
right,
sorry, let me speak real quick.
go ahead.
Speaking
Go
of
ahead.
sycophants, those guys are coming a little bit too sycophantical for me.
For Trump
Yes.
or yeah. Yeah, I mean I think that it's they're in a tough little spot given that one of their co-hosts is part of the administration. Um we as a fellow group of four who have a very successful podcast, I can empathize
Very large
that
following.
we may also be in a bit of a pickle. But
Wait.
I
Similar to that, I personally think they're also, other than the fact that he's part of it, I also think those guys are incredibly opportunistic human beings. So
yes.
they're just like playing the chance to be in any sort of administration role or
You want the
having
facts?
influence. So they're like
Unbiased
flip-flopping their views
symposium.
so that they don't piss off Trump.
Well, right, there's a lot to I mean, so like they also released, I don't know if I didn't get through it all, but like David Friedberg released an episode with the Secretary of Agriculture like yesterday.
I didn't listen to that one
right.
either.
And he's in it like the ag business. And so it's good for him to be close to the Secretary of Agriculture.
Yeah.
So, I definitely think they have quite a few conflicts going on, which is a bit of a challenge. But I thought they had Ryan Peterson on, who's the CEO of Flexport, which is a logistics company, and he's super active on Twitter. You don't like him. But nonetheless, he said something really interesting. They were talking about this kind of conversation of, is AI kind of plateaued out, or are we on the up and up still? And the argument that they made that I found most interesting was that AI is really just going to allow us to do the things that we typically wouldn't put any human labor or capital behind. So, for example, what they gave is they have like 400,000 truck drivers across the country that are part of their platform, and they want to be able to notify these truck drivers when there's a load out there that meets their criteria, that like matches what you might want out of a load if you're a truck driver. And so they can send them notifications and stuff. But what they also are now doing is using AI to call the truck driver and say, hey, Justin, we think that you'd like this load from South Bend to Des Moines, Iowa. Here's what it is, etc. Right? And they typically could not justify the cost of using humans to call Justin and say, here's this load. Now they're using AI to do it. And so it's not that they've taken anything away, it's that they're adding on a layer of something new because they can do it for essentially $0 using AI to do it. And it's relatively low stakes because this is just their trucking network. They're not talking to customers. They're not dealing with any like financial, anything financial. So I don't know. I thought that was a pretty interesting take. But I do agree, Matthew, with what you're saying, that they are kind of running into a couple of questionable takes at the same time.
Yeah, that was kind of bugging me. I wasn't going to talk about it on the podcast because I honestly don't think anyone else cares about that, but I was just going to talk about that with you. It's like, I always felt like they were, I mean, they definitely have their political views and their biases, but now it just feels like because they, you know, because they're opportunistic guys who want to like take advantage of being close to the administration because that gives you a lot of favors, they're all kind of just like, I mean, even like, well, big ones like Chamath. Chamath is like, he's going to dinner with Trump now, and he's part of that like social club that
Yeah.
Don Jr.'s
Yeah.
joining, the starting, and like, this guy was like a
He's
lifetime
he
Democrat. Like,
I
he's
know.
just like, he's
He
flip-flopping
is
for political
disappointing.
favor.
He's disappointing me a little bit. Just like even in his take on like giving the administration like an A+ on tariffs.
Yeah, like,
Like
come on.
I'm like, yeah.
It show you have
So
your what
so
you
it's
stuck to. And I was and like well Jason Calacanis, who's always was mostly like the Democrat on the show, or at least the liberal. He's like, oh, I'm in the middle, and
oh
he has like no backbone anymore. Not that he ever had much
I
of a
know.
backbone, but he has absolutely no
No,
backbone on the show anymore. He just gets walked all over.
he does. He keeps getting more and more like I'm an independent. I'm an independent.
Yeah, he's a joke.
Every time somebody accuses him of being a lefty, which he is a complete lefty, but
Yeah. It's like just stand by your beliefs, dude. Like, isn't that the whole point of this? Like everybody comes in with their different viewpoints and but you're all friends. That's the whole idea. But now, I don't know. I'm losing interest in that show. I like the topics they usually talk about, but they're kowtowing to Trump a little too much that I like. Whereas I think
Sam,
some of them could be a
Sam, it
little more
seems like you want to
critical.
say something.
I've got a lot to say
Let's hear it.
about it.
Bring it.
Working backwards, I think Trump supporters should be the biggest critics of Trump. If you voted Trump into office, you should be holding him to the highest standard of anybody. And so when you disagree with something that he's doing, you should be vocal. And so I think it bodes very poorly for the entire following if you find that the following is veering more towards the sycophantic side of just appeasing Trump and just trying to be yes men. I think that's cancer. I think that's going to kill it. So I think if you are a true Trump supporter, you should be critical. You should be voicing your concerns. You know, getting rid of NPR, PBS. I want to know what they did wrong. Getting rid of the national forests. I don't like it. So I voice that. I don't like it. Like be
You heard
against
me
it.
come on this very show 2 weeks ago and be very critical of tariffs and of Howard Lutnick and of everything that's been going on.
I was bullish on
That was
tariffs.
that was at great political and public risk to my reputation.
Yeah, when was the last
Come
time you
on
went to
here
Mar-a-Lago
and do
since then?
that. I haven't been invited back since. You see what I'm saying? So,
Wow.
It got
but
lost
I
in
had the
mail.
courage. I had the courage to come on this platform, big, great, beautiful platform,
#1 podcast in America.
and and speak what I believed. And some of our comrades on All In just can't seem to do it. But anyway,
Well,
continue.
I've got some to say about AI as well. Off of Trump. But Matt, you said that AI was early internet, and I'm trying to understand just based off of I've got 2 data points when AI really started to enter the public and then when it became saturated. And I'm going to use the timelines the end of 2022 to April 15th of 2025. So that was about 3 years from the time period where it was introduced to the time period where it was saturated with like your mom using it or something like that. By the way, sidebar, I commend you and you should hold out as long as possible on not using AI because pretty soon that's going to be like, wow, that's really honestly at this point we're past saturation, so you're already in the black. You're already profiting off of that. So I
Still
think
we're early. I
The
mean,
la-
like in terms of people using it, like I've talked to a lot of people who like don't use AI. I think we're kind of in the minority though. Our group, like you guys use AI, but I don't really.
Like
I
I'm
don't
a
know that many people that do.
like I'm a freak. Is that what you're saying?
you are
You're definitely
free.
in the top percentile of
You're
people I
in
know.
the top. You know when you like do your Apple Music or your Spotify Music and it tells you your like percentage of listeners. You're probably in like the 0.1% of listeners of AI.
That actually brings up
Very
another
proud.
point that I wanted to respond to that Austin made, that AI is eventually going to do things like help truck drivers find jobs that they're interested in. And I take big issue, again, with outsourcing that kind of autonomy to an algorithm that is going to choose what is best for you based off of some preferences that you put, but you're not exactly sure how it's matching you. You're not exactly sure if you're getting all of the jobs that you should be getting, even though it makes it really seamless. It presents here are the ones you didn't have to do any work for it. Where is your level of control in understanding how those jobs were selected for you? And if you give up that level of control, that may not be working in your best interest.
Hold on a second. Hold on. All I was saying there was we're now able to use AI to make phone calls because we couldn't afford to let, people in the Philippines make the phone calls. But the algorithm's already working. On eHarmony, right? When you're searching for your next wife on eHarmony, how do you know who it's showing you? And what the algorithm is. You gave all those apps preferences, and it's going to show you someone, and you might marry that person, and that's lovely and beautiful. But you don't know what that is, and so that's way higher stakes than a trucking app telling you what it thinks that
I
you
admit that's
might
more
want.
of a gripe against the algorithm generally, and I sort of view AI as like the algo godfather. It's like algo of algo, and so I blame it for my grievances else that you can find elsewhere, like in the dating world.
Like it will juice the algos.
Huh.
It'll juice all algos
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we just
to a
don't all
point that
want
you're
to live in an
uncomfortable.
algorithm world. Did we ever think about that?
I think about that every
I'm
day
tired
and
of the
day.
algorithm. Some
Me
streaming
too.
services I
We all are.
stop using because they're just recommending me the same thing
Spotify
over and
blows.
over.
Justin, what are you searching?
Stop the algo. Hashtag stop the algo. So you're
I mean,
posting
the
it all
algo's the
around.
algo. I kind of agree with Austin. I think the algo's been around before AI. AI is just abusing the shit out of
It's
it.
efficient.
I mean, the fact that I think I've seen this on Reddit a couple times though. You have an art installation at, one of those art museums, and all it is terms and conditions of every, social media company on a wall, and it just goes down the wall and you get to see how long every terms and conditions are. And it's just like where like if we had a spine as a society, we'd put a stop to that. Just be like, okay, you can't obfuscate what you're gonna be doing with me using your application. And then the capitalists are gonna come say, oh, well, it's your choice to use the application, but then like you're human beings, you understand if you're not using the application, you're kind of ostracized from society. So like I don't know. You guys know I have some issues with capitalism in general and what it's been doing here, but um I mean, that's the algo. At this point, it's cat out of the bag, right? So, I hate that I get recommendations after talking about something I've been looking up. That is creepy as hell, and that is everyone has stories of that now. So, God, I don't know what's next. What's after that? That's gonna be like something like, oh, you should think about this. You need this, and like somehow make you do something. That's the next
It's
step.
it's I mean it's already happening, but it's for the better because it's going to give you better ideas than what you were even thinking of. So now
I don't buy it. I don't buy
most
it.
times
I
when you
don't
ask
buy
a
it.
question, it's saying, "Hey, what if you thought about these three things? Do you want me to think about this thing for you?" Right? Like consider this as an option,
We've
and
we've
it's something that
shown
you hadn't even thought of.
we've shown time and time again that when people have control, they don't use it for the benefit of other people. They use it for the benefit of themselves at the expense of other people. And I think we can demonstrate that the people who are in control of the algorithms are not going to use it like benevolently to just support people to their best interest. They're going to use it for their own best interest, as anybody like reasonably would.
I think this is a great segue to the question Justin asked earlier, the comment he made. I said, "What do y'all want to talk about today?" And of course, Justin says, I want to talk about the concept of fiduciary duty being a double-edged sword that can lead to soaring profits and a downfall of a country. So tell me what's on your mind, buddy, that made you want to say that today.
Well, it's like I just want to keep it simple. Like, right, if you're a publicly owned company, right, you have millions of investors. Your fiduciary duty is to do whatever you can to ensure that your stakeholders get a positive return. And, as a company, you can do this in several different ways. But one of the most common ways is obviously you want to lower costs and you want to produce your product for cheaper or you want to produce a better product, whatever it is. But one of the most common things that a lot of publicly traded companies did in the early 2000s and 2010s is the outsourcing maneuver. And you're one of the largest input costs at any company is labor. And when you have this option to leave the United States and find a cheaper labor force, you look at your fiduciary duty and say, I have to do this if I want to help my stakeholders. So you have hundreds of companies like doing a perfectly legal thing, all for the sake of doing what their legal duty is as a company to provide a better value for their stakeholders. And that's the first part of that. These companies are wildly successful. You can't fault them for it. They didn't do anything wrong. But then comes the second part of that statement where now you're starting to see the downsides of all of this, right? These companies, and maybe this hasn't really been it's taken into account, but when you make decisions like this, where you offshore all your work, I'm just going to pick Vietnam as an example. You offshore your work to Vietnam. The moment that is not available for you for whatever reason, you now lose your input of labor entirely. And now you are not able to produce what you as a company did. So you're not only breaking your fiduciary duty, like this doesn't happen often, like Vietnam's not going to blow up, but like that's just that part.
Easy there.
But then the other part of this that I don't think these companies take into account, and maybe they don't have to, is like the national security question. And I'm not even talking about like obviously chips. You guys already have heard me rant about chips, like computer chips. Um, it's any product. Like the fact that you have these conflicting things where your duty as a CEO would be to provide more value for your stakeholders, so you offshore. But like you are a United States company, so now you have, for whatever reason, it could be war, it could be a famine or aggro, like whatever it is, you are now risking not the this sounds great, but risking the lives of the people in your country. You are hurting the national security of this country for this decision you made 2 decades ago, and you can't fault them for it. That's what I'm saying. This is a double-edged sword. This duty to provide the most value to stakeholders is this desire for growth every single year. You have to hit that 7% growth or every single year. So it leads you to make decisions that are not in the best interest if you look at a country, in my opinion. And that's
Okay,
kind
so
of the double-edged sword I'm
yeah.
wanted to bring
So
up.
let's frame a question then out of this that everyone can react to, if I may. So, I think maybe the question that you're trying to think of is sort of what is the responsibility of private enterprise to be a source of supply, or like how, right, like how American does an American company need?
How American does an American company need to be, and at what point is company value, or at what point does a company put too much effort into producing value? Like, and I'm thinking financial value to its stakeholders. That's where I'm getting hung up on, is at what point is
I love
enough
this
enough?
question.
Matthew, why don't you react first? How do you
I
feel about what was just proposed?
I think at some point, isn't a public company just a bank? Like when a company is a private company, their goal, they have a mission statement, and that's what they want to achieve. No matter what the company is, they have their goals and their mission statement, and it says what their achievement, their goal is to achieve this mission statement, right? Once they become a public company, it's basically like what Justin's saying. You have a fiduciary obligation to just make as much money as possible. You're not beholden to anything else other than your shareholders. And that's because everyone gave you their money and they're expecting a return. So basically, it's just a bank and they just are expecting a return. It's an investment, right? Everyone wants a return. That's why they invest instead of just like leave it in their bank account, because their bank account is never going to give them interest and they're going to make money on a company. I don't know. I guess it's how you look at a company at the end of the day. Justin's saying fiduciary obligations are dumb, but as a shareholder or someone that puts my money in there, that's what I want out of my public company. I want them to make me money because I want the value of my dollar to go up because it's basically like my bank. Um, so like I don't expect a public company to necessarily achieve this mission statement. I just want them to make money. Whereas I want my private
Set.
companies to achieve the goals that that they go out they set themselves out to do because they're only taking in money from, you know, whoever their initial investors are. They just need to make those people money.
So said differently than Sam, I want you to react. And I'm not going to react to like the public-private because I'm not sure I understand the exact difference there. But more so, you agree with the following that um, as an investor in say we could use two examples: a toilet paper manufacturer or a weapons company. You're an investor in this public company. You don't necessarily care where they're making the product. You care that they are making more money so that you can get a return on your investment.
Yeah, like at the level that I'm investing, it being so low, all I care is that you make me money. I suppose if I am a large portion of this, like if own 30% of your company, I do think my input should be important. Like if I own 30% of your company, I should feel like my value should be able to be portrayed a little bit and what their decision making is, but I own like nothing. So for the majority of people that own stocks, it's really just make me money. I don't care how you do it, just do it.
Okay. Sam, thoughts?
Yeah, that's interesting, Matt. I've never thought about public companies as banks before, but it makes sense to me. And you know, I think I talked about this on like episode 0 of the podcast, blaming everything
Unpublished.
on the banks and on specifically inflation and the requirement for ever increasing profits. And it's interesting to think of public companies as sort of a manifestation of that requirement. Like their job is no longer to do a specific thing other than increase shareholder value, make more money. And so that essentially is just be a bank, be something that matches or beats inflation at any cost. And so, you know, I think that's sort of like a root of all evil in my mind that leads to all kinds of ethical questions. One being public defense companies being publicly traded stocks. If your expectation is that this company is going to continue to make more and more money, then your expectation is that they're going to like increase their sales of weapons and of war related things. So, you know, and for them to fulfill their fiduciary duty, you need to have more war for them to be able to sell more. Like that seems pretty highly unethical to me.
So is your concern mostly then around defense? Because I intentionally chose the dichotomy of toilet paper versus defense, right? And the decision there of how you feel about each of those companies being more offshore than onshore. And I think that there's a clear argument maybe for defense, and maybe defense companies you have to be in the United States, and we should subsidize that, which we do. That industry, we literally subsidize all of it. That industry to remain onshore, and to have that technology here and not have it elsewhere, just for these reasons of like what we run into today. But for some of the other items like t-shirts, toilet paper, that other stuff, like is there that much of a national security concern? Because that was a lot of what you were saying, Justin, was like it's a national security issue um to have gone and outsourced our production
I mean,
over the last 30 years.
national security is the easiest one to talk about, like you just said with the weapons defense. But even a toilet paper making company, right? They let's just triple down. You outs or double down. You outsource to Southeastern Asian company or a country, and then you make the decision. Oh, they have nice anti-environmental laws. Let's just pollute the hell out of this region. Like it's not just national security for the country that if they were based in the US.
Mm.
It's also it's more
Yeah.
than that. It's like you are making these decisions purely for the profit-based reason. And I think that's where my issue comes up is yes, I understand it. I understand Matthew just wants to make money, but at a certain point, and that's where this is where stands inflation comes in. Like that 7% growth is unsustainable. It is unsustainable, right? These companies will eventually make decisions that are detrimental to me as a consumer of their toilet paper in America. Like that is undeniably gonna happen. And so I just what's the answer there?
What do you mean by that? Like that you'll have a worse toilet paper experience, or that there is this pollution? Because I do think that there's like this
I had a
this
bad
like
toilet paper
outsourcing.
experience today.
That's what I was thinking.
There's some horrific toilet paper, right? But like there's also, you can still, like, there is a spectrum of assortment, right? Like it's a very competitive market, but there's a broad assortment that you can choose from. So I think that, like, it's the interesting question is, like, you make a good point about like the outsourcing of pollution, right? That like we offshore pollution essentially by moving manufacturing outside of America. But I guess I actually am very surprised, just frankly, by like you and Matthew. I kind of thought you two would have opposite takes. But it's interesting to hear, because like Matthew is saying, I'm an individual investor. I can't make an impact, or I can't affect, just this whatever Cottonelle decides to do of where they're going to produce their products. So just go make me the most money.
Well,
So what do you think, like, the
I mean,
solution is
can
there?
I speak on that actually? I do
Yeah.
believe in someone like I can't remember, is it Martin Luther King or whoever said this, where it's like be the change you want to see in the world. Like I am supportive of put your money where your mouth is. Like if you don't believe in a company, don't like, even though I'm seeing these companies as banks, I personally think I do have like a moral obligation, just me personally. Like I'm not going to invest in a company that I believe is like a bad company, someone that's like actually causing problems. But there's a lot of ones that are just like, like Apple. Like if I bought Apple stock, I don't think Apple's a bad company. I think
I
they're
don't know, man. The iPhone has destroyed society. Having mobile
okay.
phones in your
Fair enough.
pocket,
Fair enough. Okay.
worst thing possible.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But okay, Microsoft, is that a better example? Like having the internet, or I'm just trying to think of large public companies. Disney, I guess Disney's like I don't know if you can say Disney's a bad company. Um, I think you should put your money where you think it should go based on your own like personal beliefs. But I also have become more and more realistic as I've gotten older. It's like, sure, I can stop going to Chick-fil-A if I don't stand for what they believe in, but it's like it's not going to affect their bottom dollar at the end of the day, you know?
I reject that though. I think, I used to vote third party a lot in general elections, and people would say, you're throwing your vote away. There's no chance of that making any impact, so you might as well vote for like one of the two reasonable options and the lesser of two evils. And I reject that full-heartedly, that you should vote for what you believe in, whether or not it has a dying chance of winning, because otherwise there's literally no chance that what you believe in could become, real. So I think even though it won't affect their bottom dollar if you don't do it, if the entire society has that mentality, then nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to make any change. So every individual needs to do it at an individual level for its own sake, not for the sake of like anything else.
No, I agree with that, and I think I am talking a little bit out of both sides of my mouth here, because I don't know, maybe I don't know where I stand on this issue, but I agree. Like you shouldn't let somebody convince you to like vote for someone because they think your vote's going to be useless. Like put your money where your mouth is. Like support who you support, and even if it's not going to be like a huge change. In terms of like fiduciary obligations and where I'm putting my money, I will invest. Like I am going to use it as a bank, but if I can, I'm gonna try and not give my money to the ones to the defense contractors just because I know they can make me money. Because there are plenty of other alternatives that I could give my money to that would
So
still
can I
make me
tie it
money.
back to
But
defense?
why wouldn't you give it to a defense? Like, why wouldn't you give it to Lockheed Martin? And
It
like, I guess the
depends.
bot also.
I'm not saying all defense contractors. I don't know. I just use that as an example because that's what we're using. If it's a
Let me
company
take
that
it
I
back
don't
to public
believe in,
defense. Let me take it back to national security, which I think is what Justin's original question was. Because I think there's like the question of public defense stocks and the morality of that, but then there's also the impact of ever increasing profits leading to a national security issue. And I think, Justin, this is actually maybe our last podcast. We talked a lot about tariffs. And this was one of my arguments pro tariff was because, like, I think a really good example is steel. If you can't produce steel in your country, then you aren't going to be able to produce the weapons in order to defend your country. And so it becomes a national security issue when US steel is then going to sell to, Nippon Steel, or if you're just going to outsource all of this to other countries. And I think you can see that across the line all the way to Austin, your example of clothing. I think it does become a national security issue if you aren't able to produce the goods that your citizens need to be able to live their lives. Even if it's something as simple as t-shirts, that causes civil unrest, that causes issues. People are going to be poor. And so I think it does become a national security issue to incentivize companies to be domestic to a certain extent, just because if you've outsourced everything, you're beholden to everybody else. If they stop selling to you for some reason, maybe because the dollar's dying, then you're going to be in real trouble.
So you're on the tariff train. You're on the Trump tariff train.
I am. I mean, the way that he's handled it, I don't know. Like, I'll be super critical of that, but I see there is a reason why this is like a logical thing to do. I don't know exactly if it's going to work out or how to do it, but and the way that he's done it, I feel pretty critical about the way that he like slammed it on and then kowtowed, and I don't know. It just seems like a lot of charades and probably, I don't know.
So do we need a list then? Do we need like a list of goods we think should be produced in the U.S. and everything else we allow to go be produced somewhere else? Because like, no one's gonna make a T-shirt in America. No one's making T-shirts.
The Symposium U.S. Manufacturing Index, the SUSMI.
It's got to spell simp.
SUSM. Okay, the Symposium
Industrial
Manufacturing Products
Portfolio.
Sounds like we're making
Portfolio.
products.
We're going to make an ETF. Simp, check it out.
We'll be open about it. It has a very high expense ratio, but we're going to be open about
Very
it.
high.
8%.
It's going to be very high.
The
We have no
highest
dividends.
you've ever seen.
Somehow, even though it's an ETF.
We're actually
no
going to
dividends.
announce dividends every quarter and then later not issue the dividends.
Correct.
That is definitely illegal.
$50 dividend. Everybody buy it.
Can't say that
So
online.
I think I want to circle back to Justin. So you just read a lot of prognostication here.
That was a little bit of rabbit hole, Matthew and Sam.
I know.
But I appreciate you guys diving in.
I guess like where did we miss the mark on how you were feeling? I'm becoming very sensitive, so I want to make sure that we're appealing to your
my feelings.
Feelings here.
My feelings
Chat
are
helping with
that the idea of forever profits was
the tequila.
The tequila talk. The idea that profits will happen every single year. They need to grow every single year at a certain rate. For some reason, I just don't see that as something that's realistic. In a sense that I wish there was, instead of fiduciary duty, since this is also a cat out of the bag situation. I don't know how we fix this, even with tariffs. But if there was, in my grand idea world, if you're a company that pulls in $2 billion a year, you are considered the most successful company. You don't have to do a lick more if you are able to maintain that revenue stream. Other companies might try to get up and take market share. They might try to do the same thing you're doing, but you'll have to fight them off. But if you hit a certain, it's like a cap for companies. It's a silly thing to even think of, but I think it would have solved this idea of this duty where they start making decisions that are not in the best interest of the citizens. And that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. You can come back and say, oh, why are they ever going to innovate? I mean, obviously, that's a fair question. I think Sam, episode 2, humans are innately innovative. You would have individuals working at, Intel or Microsoft that would come up with new ideas, even though they were at the 2 billion market cap revenue per year. But I don't know. I don't think there is an answer, Austin. You're like, hey, what's the answer to this? At this point, I mean, we're all Matthew, right? There's no really other vehicle we can make money with, so we have to invest in stocks and in public companies. So everybody's on this train now. Now I just am the world is in one of the most uncertain spots. So now this train is on some tracks that are getting a little shaky.
What if I said that the certainty actually would come from international diplomacy and the realization that we are dependent on international trade,
Nah.
and so actually the focus should be on like building and continuing to strengthen the
I
relationships
think
with our key
globalism
trading partners.
as a theory is the perfect form how to handle the world, right? Everybody's interconnected, so you have trust between each other. You never want to go to war because that would break these chains of trust. But as we've seen in take communism as a perfect theory is a very interesting idea. If you ran a perfect communistic society, everybody should be content, everybody should be happy, but that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen in globalism either. So the balance, I
But
think, is what's
but it's
lost.
but it's not communism. It's globalism. It's capitalism on the global stage. Like we haven't seen communism take over. I mean, it hasn't like communism hasn't won by any means. We've more so seen capitalism globally find the next source of cheap labor in developing, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah,
Like
I
in
mean, their
actually a
lives
good
typically
way.
improve
Right,
when
in a good way we have
if
found the
money is
next
what you
source
care
of
about.
cheap labor
Yeah.
in other developing worlds, and that has overall grown the economic pie of the globe. And so I think if you focus actually on not trying to backpedal away from that and actually embrace that, understand that the United States is still the economic superpower, still has the leverage, can can make decisions of who we trade with and who we don't trade with, and actually have a meaningful impact on the economics of those countries, and use that as our leverage point instead of trying to reshore and say we need to bring everything back to the United States and literally go back to 1980. Like, just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I think the 1970s and I think it was called Entente with China was just a disastrous decision in hindsight, right? Because
What is that? Entente?
it was like when Nixon reached out to China to, find an ally against Russia. So he kind of opened up China in the 70s. So then, more investment into China. China becomes a manufacturing superpower. We just chose Austin's idea poorly, right? We picked the wrong superpower to.
Well, at the time, it was really the best option. They had the capability to grow and to meet our needs for, 50, 60 years. I think that's just something that happens is
It was a
eventually your child will
short-sighted
grow up
option.
and kill you.
Like 50 years might sound like a long time, but it's still, you had a government that was totally incompatible with the United States government, and you immediately said, here's a ton of money. Well, not, I mean, it took 50 years. Like, they didn't start booming until 2000s, 2010s, that's when they just skyrocket. It's just, I agree with Austin's idea that this capitalism could be this wave of good, and you see it in countries like Vietnam and um, Thailand and all these Southeastern Korea, great example, or South Korea. Um, I just at
Yeah,
this
but
point it seems like
capitalism
we
got
picked the
us
wrong one.
here.
It got
But
us here, but now we're seeing it got some bad people here as well.
it's the most, you said it yourself, it feels like the most unstable time.
Speaking of Korea, I actually ran into somebody the other day from North Korea. I asked him how his life was,
What?
and he said, "I can't complain."
That was the best one. I enjoyed it. That was my favorite one of the night.
We're going to be a big hit in North Korea, I
Oh my
think.
God. That
Oh
one's
my
getting clipped,
God.
Matt. That one's going out on the tube.
Just drop a little laughter in there. We're getting too serious.
Yeah, sorry, I was spiraling there. It's all right. I'll get out of it.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna come to a resolution. Are we good on that
Yeah, what's the
topic?
next topic?
Well, we have a couple quick things. So one, we haven't talked about our reader interview, our reader comments in a minute. We only had one, but our symposium simp listener, he said, "You are ignoring me. No one answered my last comment. Why take readers' comments if not to read them? You've become too big. You've changed. You don't care about your day one fans anymore. It's a sad day for the many listeners. Worst regards." So
Wow.
I feel
Our
that.
one and only
It's tough.
Then-
simp is losing Any faith in
Yeah.
this pod?
And then he sent a picture of Matthew eating something, and he said, Matt,
Get
while
that.
Justin
Paparazzi.
gives a quote PSA to the citizens of the United States, Matthew's just chowing down.
Oh,
I think
it's
this was in
from the
regards
symposium.
to chips. Yeah, I think this regards into the chip situation that we're in, as far as we don't make the chips here. Fun, that's a little drawback to what we just talked about. Drinkall was telling us about that, and Matthew said he was just going to eat his food. So that was our reader comments.
He didn't say anything about the Pelosi song. Wow.
He did not.
Symposium Simp is really letting us down as our number one
Frankly,
fan.
I would be surprised if he didn't listen to all the last episode.
He's been ignoring us lately. We've been talking to him, and he hasn't been responding.
We'll see if he responds to this.
Us, guys, come on, we got to put out a better product if we're losing our one.
I will say he does have notifications on. As soon as we drop an episode, he texts me a picture of his phone showing that we dropped a new episode. So
I think his comment that we've grown too big and that we don't care about the OGs anymore is a pretty nice way of talking about current society and capitalism as a whole. So thank you, Symposium Simp, for expressing that, because I think that's true. As Justin was saying, as companies grow indefinitely, they eventually become too large. You can't care about the same things. You can't have the same quality of care. And eventually, you do hurt people. And so I'm sorry, Symposium Simp, from the bottom of our hearts. We want you here. We value you. We want your opinions and comments. We're sorry if we don't get to them all the time. We're just trying to reach as many people as possible, but you're always here.
But we will not try to get better.
No, definitely not.
We will only stray further away from our day one listeners.
All right. Do we have any other topics you guys want to go over? I know this one was kind of I feel like we've been a little disjointed. We need to.
No, this has been a great episode.
But Matt, did you feel this one was a little off?
Yeah, I feel like I've been going on tangents. I haven't been as focused as I should be.
No, I think this has been a good stray away from our typical news show. I
think this one was interesting. Yeah,
our news show, because I want to talk about this next topic. So let me just cue it up. So Sam sent us a voice message the other day.
Can we play it in the
only the
in
second
recording?
person that has ever sent me a voice message? And the secret simp might be the only other person that I've gotten a voice message from.
We have a kinship.
Only the second person to ever send a voice message on Apple iMessage. Sam said, okay, I've got an idea where a new form of government, where it passes from generation to generation, governance, where it passes from generation to generation at a certain point, and so leading up to the transition of generational power. Those generations would all be having their own elections and their own politics going on for how that generation wants to rule the country. What do you guys think? So let me pass it to Sam. That was the AI-generated recap of what you said. So why don't you tell us the idea, and we'd like to react.
Well, yeah, AI or you butchered the idea, but I'll try and
everything's
AI. Yeah, so I was thinking about a form of government where, we've got all these 88-year-old leaders in our country, right? And really what you need is the mass of the country, what they want and what they value to be what your country represents. And I think that will naturally keep pace with the times as the younger ages start to care about different things. They start to legislate and rule in different ways. And so the idea then is that you have a tranche, basically like generational maybe, where once you reach a certain point, it passes from this generation up here down to this generation down here. So the entire government passes to a new generation. So then the idea would be, once the term of baby boomers is up, millennials get a chance to rule the country. And leading up to that date, everybody knows when the date is going to be. All of the millennials are going to be having their own elections and their own internal politics that are going to be separate from, but related to, the baby boomers, because they've got their own issues that they want to address. Maybe some of those is doing things differently from the baby boomers, but they'll have a chance to vote among themselves what's important to them. And then instantly, boom, transition period, new generations in charge. Here's everything that we've been talking about for the last 6 or 10 years or since we were born, because we knew that we were going to have our chance to do things our way and the way that we think that it should be done. What do you guys think?
I want to do a round of clarification questions. This is a new and I'm trying to pull Matthew back in. He doesn't like this episode. He just
Sorry, no.
yawned.
The Knicks and Boston are at 1 second, and the
I
Celtics have the ball. That's the only reason I'm slightly
But you
distracted.
don't know what happened.
Oh, it's already
I
happened?
figured that's what you were. I figured that's what you were watching, and so I looked it
But
up,
his
and I
whole
already
house
saw
is behind.
the result.
Wow.
What's the score on your end?
100.
Oh my god, you're so far behind.
What?
You are so far
This
behind.
game ended a while ago.
I must have rewound.
Game's been over
I
for 20
probably
minutes.
paused it. It literally just ended regulation.
Well, I won't spoil it.
Okay, cool.
But I knew that's what you were doing, and so I looked it up. But I want to do like a clarification question round. I don't know if you were able to hear what
Yes,
Sam
I
was saying
listened.
or
I was still
not.
listening.
Do you have any point of clarifications on his
You need me to
thing,
recap
or you
it?
can pass it?
When it comes to passing on, we pass on the law. So like, is there still like set laws in place that still carry over from generation to generation, or does like it start fresh like every time we elect like a new generation?
I think
Great
maybe
question.
there should be internal elections on things that you would want to keep, and maybe like there are certain things that are up for re-election like every year, and that's what your generation's government is responsible for, is like affirming or changing and doing things differently. But it feels like it should be mostly wiped clean every year. There will be some things that are pretty much elected every year because they're necessary, but that gives you the opportunity to like get rid of all the junk, all the stuff that didn't work, all the stuff you don't agree with, and then only keep the things that you do agree with.
So my point of clarification, that you just said every year, which was surprising to me. Like, how do the years work, right? So is it, if I say it is, if the millennials are, I don't know what years the millennials are, 90, or I don't know, some, let's say,
It's like
80
mid
to
80s
2000.
to 96 or 97 is roughly
Okay,
the
so let's say 85 to 95, right? Let's say it's a 10-year gap in between each. So is it like you're now eligible, lowest year, or let's say, what would it be? Like lowest year plus 50 or
I
something?
think to make it easier,
Right,
we
so
would
it's
keep
like,
it in line with like the 4-year governing period. So it would be
well,
every 4 years would be your generation of leadership.
oh, okay. See, I'm glad I asked this because I totally misinterpreted. I thought you were saying that like in the years where the millennials
I did mention
are
baby boomers and millennials, right?
right, well, I was thinking like, okay, in the years where the baby boomers are 50 to 65, they're in charge. Then in the years where the millennials are 60 to 75, they're in charge. I thought that's what you were saying, but it's not what you're saying. You're saying that we will trade off and on between generations every year or every 4 years.
No, I'm saying that, like, okay, say you're born between the years 96 to 2000. Then once anybody born in that age range, once they reach the age of 50, that whole tranche would then be moved into,
Would be the government.
right, and then
So
it
it's
would
just
be everybody from
anybody.
2000 to 2004 once they become 50 or
Okay.
whatever the transition is.
That's how I was
It's just
thinking.
50-year-olds and 55s, like every 5 years, that group of people is
You
gonna
so you
be
basically get
elected.
4 years of you kind of running the tranche. Or the,
And maybe
What's the
you do it
period?
8 years, but maybe you do it 8 years, but they're like staggered, so you get a chance to like continue on, and that would, I think, encourage leadership and like bringing on the new guys and teaching them how to do things. And maybe they're still the hip guys who still want to hang and do things the new way.
40, yeah, some like 40.
So here's something that's interesting. Well, wait, I'll wait. Justin, do you have any clarifying questions?
I was actually thinking the same question of like how does the age thing work there? But no, that makes sense mixed with going back to episode 1 when we talked about, I love these callbacks.
Yeah.
It would be a voting system on your phone, It would have to be that. You couldn't be pulling off national referendums. I mean, maybe make it a public holiday every year, and just the national referendums for the age and actually, this idea is very interesting. Kind of like
Yeah,
it.
it would
So
be.
so here, here's my thought, right? I literally think that your thought here is partially just solved by term limits and by like a cap in age of being in a role. Like those two things
Yeah,
would
but
all
it's a
would
completely different
accomplish.
system though, and you would be in this group your entire life. And so you would be going through the same things. You would be in communication with each other in anticipation of your eventual role in government. And you would have all of that opportunity up until the age 50 or whatever to decide who you wanted to be the leader. And then
Well,
once you
that's
get
an
to that point,
interesting
it's like, hey,
caveat.
we've already decided for like the last whatever time period that these people have the best ideas among us and we want them to lead the way that we've decided
But none
collectively.
of but none of the lower tranches of people, the younger tranches of people, would have any power until or any real role until they reach their
They would
4-year
be
window.
basically in an election period where they're out debating things that are important to them and gaining, a following and, discussing different ways to do things.
And the election of those people is only up to the people in that
Right.
age range.
Correct. You vote among yourselves to lead, the whole nation when it's your time.
Do you
This
have
this would be crazy.
My question is, what's the incentive then for people of that age group to make decisions that better the younger generation? Because if you're just only voting for like the 50-year-olds, you're gonna probably look into like stuff that helps aging populations, but you're not gonna necessarily want to govern for the younger population because you have no like they're not voting, so you don't have to necessarily take their voice into consideration.
Interesting. I mean, we've been talking about 50, but I'm trying to think because this I think would be a bit of a societal shift. You would be growing up with these people, and there would be discourse among leadership groups. So you would still be talking to the people like your parents as you're trying to figure out what you value. So I think there would still be a societal pressure on every generation to do things like care for the aging populations or care for our children and these things that are more broadly important because that's like I think just as a society, every single group would have had to decide what was best. And I think when you have to do that like that, it naturally coalesces where everybody's like, okay, yeah, we're not going to fuck with like caring about kids or about old people or things like that.
I actually do think that the best age is whatever that age. I'm thinking about like my parents right now, like taking care of their parents, but also
Mhm.
like
Grandkids and children.
children and grandkids, right? Like they're in that spot where they have like all of these people kind of like
Yeah.
looking to them.
That makes sense because
Um,
you're leading the whole population, so you should be leading the entire age range of the population. So I
right.
think
So
you're
they can
right.
certainly empathize with like the shitty like system of like how old people have to deal with like end of life and at the same time how the issues with the healthcare system as their grandkids get born or brought up in the
Lobbying would be
school.
interesting though too, because the the amount of the population in your tranche would also play a big part. Because, right, sure, you can only vote in your tranche, but you can persuade people from other groups to do something. So there is, I guess, a similarity between the current system and that system in the fact that a 20-year-old could persuade, or I guess vice versa, a 60-year-old could persuade a 25-year-old how to vote in their upcoming tranche. Granted, hopefully they would be less influenced because
I
they
think
know that they have the rule of law at that time later. But
I think there would be persistent voices like you're talking, similar to our current systems, and I think that would be primarily economically based, where there are things like special interests that I think can survive individual people. Like the interest for the oil industry to continue is something that permeates this age separation. You might have people who are currently in their 60s influencing the group in their 20s over, you should support this thing about oil because it's good for the economy. And I think that naturally lives outside of individual people. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but I think there are some biases that maybe we'll still need to figure out how to
Would money
address.
still be a problem though in this? Like if you did have an oil exec who had his time, but then wants to influence, I mean, yeah, the lobbying would still be a problem. And I think lobbying is probably one of the biggest problems with our current system. I don't think you'd get out of lobbying at all in this new system. It would probably be the exact same.
So, what's the
Yeah,
major advantage to keeping this based? I guess I'm struggling with the advantage of it being, why are we voting for this? Why are we allowing this age group to vote, but others not? Like, what's the advantage of that?
I think one advantage is that everybody gets their chance to do it in a way that they think is best. And you would ideally be spending your whole lives observing what the people before you have done and what the people below you want to do, and then forming your opinion based off of that. So I think it ideally just gives everybody a shot to like try things differently. And as a society, that seems like it'll funnel us towards more generally, a better path than this old system that just kind of gets dragged along year after year and gets heavier and heavier and slower, just like the people who are actually running it.
I think that my thought was that, well, I guess like what I would say is I think that this system would actually be extremely stable in a way, but also slow, like slow and
I
stable.
just finished the game.
Okay, I
Who
was
won?
gonna ask. Yeah, Nick's
Well,
big
it just
winners
ended.
in OT.
was it a game winner? I just saw the final score.
No, it went to over. Brunson missed the game winner, went to overtime, and then Nick scored, and Boston had a shot, and they didn't even get one off.
Jeez.
So go ahead.
But I was gonna say that I think that this would be like actually like even a slower approach to government than what we're dealing with today, of like stability. And that's the good thing about the United States and like why we've existed for so long is because you have the branches of government you have. It's hard to do anything. And I think that equally it will be hard to do anything major in a system where you have a rollover every 5 years or whatever it might be to a new generation of people. I think that it will naturally be a slow moving thing, which isn't a bad thing.
It's
just
like
the
it
nature of
has
how it
built-in
is.
resets.
Right.
Would it be
Um,
slower? You're around the people that you're about to be in power with for your whole life, so you understand what everybody thinks from them. You're not dealing with the 60-year-old that has his own power, right? You're dealing with the 40-year-old that you've been talking to for the last 25 years.
right, but you know that you only have you have your 5 years, and so if you go insane, the next group comes in and goes the complete opposite direction. No different than today.
Yeah, I mean, that could go
And
that route.
the push and pull that you have, it's just that today you have the ability to have a 8, 12. I don't know what the longest run has been, right, of a one party system. I mean, it has not. I would actually like to ask chat this of like the three, like of the House, Senate, or the House and the president being the same party. Like, what's the longest streak been? Maybe it's 8 years, right? But you don't have that long of like that unified power before a change happens. But here, you don't even have the risk of that happening. What you have is complete like reset, like Sam said, every 5 years, um, which I think would actually grind the gears of government even more. And you might have these like small swings every 5 years of one way or the other way, but it's gonna like balance out
See,
over
that's
time.
that's I think a point of clarification. I think it would slow it down as far as the pendulum swings, but I think it would actually make governance faster and more lean because every 5 years, a big like all the laws have to get reelected, and so we have every 5 years get rid of a bunch of shit that didn't work. And so we just continuously move on and focus on the things that are important to us. So I think that allows it to actually operate faster, but I agree with you because of these resets every 4 years. It makes the overall like you've got people who have been in Congress for like 40 years and have a lot of power, And so that like pulls the pendulum like way over this way, and then it swings back that way, and like
Wait,
this.
are we missing something though? Would there be a reset at all? Because if you're born in 96, and let's say you're just, or 95, and you're the 95 to 2000 tranche, that is what it is. Let's say you're born in 99 though. Your tranche begins, you're in the 5 year
Do you only
one.
get 1 year of
No,
eligibility,
that's,
or
there's
do
no
you
way
get?
you'd get all 5.
I don't
No,
know.
you
I don't know.
can't.
I'm asking.
You
No,
can't, because if you're doing an election every
It's a luck
5
of the
years,
draw.
There's no way you
You
could get
might
away
as
with
It's the
luck
well
of
luck
draw.
of the draw.
No way you can do
well, then you have to have an
that.
election every single year.
It's
No,
no.
it's the tranche
You
gets.
become
Yeah,
able
you
to
would
vote.
just be a younger serving member. You would be
Yeah.
like a 50-year-old instead of a 55-year-old. But and then the 50-year-old would end up being 55 at the end, and the 55-year-old would end up being 60. But they each got 5
It's
years.
just by day you're born. It's not
Yeah.
every 5 years.
So when do you do this election? When do you switch the power to this next generation?
You don't. Yeah, I think that's a misnomer. We're not switching here. It's your age group gets their time.
So it's all this is all this is. Then, if that's true, which I don't know, Sam, you tell us. But all
Sorry,
this
Sam, if I'm
is
speaking over, but I was just thinking so
all
hard
this
about
is
this.
shrinking. All this is shrinking the eligibility window of age and putting a hard cap on age limit and of a term limit. All this is saying that you have to be 45 to 50 to run, and that's the limit, and that's your window.
Well, same with voting though too, right? Only that age
Same
group
with
can
voting.
vote.
Right. Only the age group vote. Only the age group can run.
I feel like I need to have a paper and pen, but it's a difference between a sliding scale based on your birth date and everybody from this age to this age. I think there's an issue with that because then you would have people entering and exiting Congress like all the time. Like everybody would have their 55th birthday party and like goodbye, and then the other person's like, I just turned 50. I'm like welcome now, and you've got to like make changes in seats. I think it's a better system if somehow you have just everybody between 95 and 2000 gets this chunk of years later in time, and it's not once you turn 50. It's just once. Like say it's okay, so what would be so
But if you're born on
2050, say it's
December
2000, say it's January 1 2050, everybody who is born 1995 to 2000 becomes in charge, everybody from that 5 year period, even though some people are younger and some people are older, and that entire tranche rules the entire period regardless of their birthday. It's just like, here's your club and you rule.
Okay. Yep, that's
Got
what I
it.
was missing.
You're grouping them all in the same. You're saying they're all the same age. You get the
Right.
5 years,
Mhm.
essentially. It's
Ooh.
not that if you were born on, you said 1995, so say like December 31st, 1999, right? Now you have no eligibility because you have 1 day of eligibility in your governmental role. You're saying no, they're part of the whole tranche of that
Correct.
5 years,
Correct.
and they can just be
Begins
part
on
of
day
it.
1 of that 5 year tranche. Okay.
They would just be the youngest member for those 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, I really like the idea, but I do think that like first step would just be instituting like some stricter caps on age of run on the age limits and of term limits. Term limits first, right? If like you could just institute term limits, that would be a big step forward in exactly.
What about
Bear said that's not popular idea.
so this whole revoting of laws? Would we have to classify our laws into different levels? Like, 'cause you can't revote every law every 5 years.
I
You
know. I
just
don't.
can't.
What do you
So
actually
you
want to
need
hear
to
more
like
about?
you need to like classify these as like these are laws that could potentially be changed in the next 5 years. These laws like let's not murder. That's just like a 10 commandments sort of like
Yeah.
laws of humans we can't
Let's
change.
Right. Let's use. I'm gonna frame up two things, and Sam, then you react. Right. Like, one is a law of murder, and like, let's use a triple homicide,
Wow,
That's
3
one.
murders.
and the second, like, does that need to be revoted on? And then number two is like federal income tax rate. Right. That's number two. So do we revote on both?
Tough question, honestly. I think
That's why I'm the best moderator in the podcast.
well, it was
universe.
Matt's question, I believe, but excellently rephrased.
Thank you, Sam.
Okay, I'm thinking. You said you can't revote every law. Maybe I could push back on that, saying you've had 55 years to like engross yourself in this, And so maybe there's stuff that like every year you don't have to revote in that triple homicide is illegal. Like there's just some stuff that is, 10 commandments.
Can I pause
Yeah,
you for one
yeah.
second? An interesting idea there. What if every year, every tranche is actually voting, right? And so if you're the tranches in power, the consensus of the tranche that's coming in, right? And so within your tranche, that you want to, let's use taxes, not homicide, right? You know that the tranche coming in wants a 15% tax rate, and you're the tranche that's in power, and you're at a 20% tax rate. And so that taxes are going to go down when the next tranche comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, so you could actually be doing this voting on these
And
issues
I
your
like
whole
that
life, essentially.
because the idea of having like a 10-year, 8-year overlap forces you to want to collaborate with the younger generation. Because if you want to be like reelected, I guess, I don't know, then would you open up? There's some idea there. I'm not sure how that would work, but I like the idea of forcing you to collaborate with the newer ideas, and that sort of makes it a more seamless like transition.
This is a general question, not about your new governance, but do you guys know how they handle laws that are being processed or cases that are being prosecuted when a law changes? So, like, if you got caught with marijuana possession, but your state then changed the law the next year and your court case was still pending, do they basically just drop the case? Or because it was a law when you broke it, they still prosecute you because you broke the law at the time?
It needs to be retried or
Because that's the
something.
question I'm running into here. If we're switching laws every 5 years, there are a lot of cases where they could fall into that gray area of like, oh, they haven't processed this last year. All these laws just switched. How do we go about that? Like, this is the
Yeah,
most
and
extreme, but like, if we decide, oh, murder is not that bad, you commit a murder the day before we switch the law, they're going to switch the law to murder's okay, so you just kill somebody.
yeah, and I think that was my other point that I was trying to make, as far as this being a hard question to answer, because I think that really this new form of governance needs to come with a new form of the rule of law. And I think, this is going to be a societal change. Like now you are artificially grouping people together for their whole lives in anticipation of ruling. So that'll have a significant impact on the way that we interact societally. So I think that there's also an opportunity to rewrite the way that we operate using law. And I think that I can make an argument to say that law has been weaponized in the American system, and more so than not, law is used as a way to technically do things that aren't illegal, and it makes it okay to do things that are quote unquote wrong. So I think, there are some issues with the way that we've got these persistent laws, but not to say that we don't need any laws, but maybe it looks different. So instead of saying like you can't trade a stock within 3 days of purchasing it and everybody has to vote on that every single year, maybe this new form of governance will lead to a system that you wouldn't even be put in a position to do something like trade stock. I don't know. I'm thinking like this would be just a really broad change into, if you're going to accept this new form of governance, you're accepting a new way of living. So I guess you need to open your mind to the possibility that like everything is done differently. I don't know. Not a satisfying answer, but
No, I like the
it's
concept.
a hypothetical question. So
You start somewhere.
I think the intention is right.
yeah, I think it'd be cool to try, and then everything else would just fall into place. Like we would figure out how to have this like wiping of the slate, but still in a manageable way, and we would figure out how it changes the way that we want to rule ourselves. Like I think
I
it would
also
just be
love the
cool to see.
idea. I also love the idea of like knowing, you know, 20 years in advance, like how that, like what the world will look like in 20 years, right? If you could forecast or know, think about the certainty that would provide to business. If you knew tax rates, corporate tax rates, so far in advance, and of course it's going to change because every year they're kind of voting and like thinking about it themselves within their cohort. But if you could then forecast that over time, like that would provide such certainty onto what the world will look like in America, because you're able to see what the results are of these elections, like that are not actually meaning, like they don't mean anything to the real law. But that would be like an amazing thing to be able to forecast and understand that.
I forgot. Calling back to episode 4 of the podcast with ChatGPT as ruler and the judicial system, I think that could potentially play a role in this system, assisting with the judicial side of the laws. And you would have an AI that was generated based off of the collective opinions of each generation, and that AI was then the law.
I think that's another step that we don't need to talk about.
It's the piece.
Yeah,
It's the
I see
missing
where you're
piece.
going on. I think it would just be so refreshing to have a government that would basically the government would have their pulse on, the country pretty much every generation. It might be different a little bit, but it wouldn't
Yeah.
be so drastic, man. You wouldn't have a 78-year-old president with a 69-year-old house leader. Like, just imagine that. Like, some people just
Right.
have their pulse, have their thumb on the
And that
pulse.
certainty of knowing like what's coming, I think would just be so interesting, right? To know that like I mean, like these social issues, which I may or may not disagree with, but that down the pike that weed's legal or gay marriage is legal, or like we care about allowing AI into our families, or right, like you start to make these. Matthew's like asleep. He doesn't even react to when I say
When did
AI is part of our
When did
family.
we legalize gay marriage?
I don't know, but you start to like you can like foresee those things coming, which I just think is really interesting, actually, to have like a true election today on the 18 to 25-year-olds, right, and actually understand their opinions on things. And I mean, I know you can do like some like polling on this and think about it, but then to see how that evolves over time, um, really would I think be an interesting concept.
Do you think this would only be on the federal level, or would this be on a municipal level? Would it be on a state level?
All the way down to the household.
So we're
Household
rewriting
level.
all the we're rewriting all the laws for every level of government every 5 years.
I think a certain city should try it. I think a city should try it as that should be the first step. Is that like South Bend, Indiana? I don't know why I picked
Told
that.
you about South
random.
Bend.
I don't live there. But I think that South Bend,
neither.
Indiana should try this
neither.
idea of allowing their 100,000 citizens to be part of these tranches and see how it goes.
Yeah, you could definitely
Yeah,
do some
it's-
test cases in like certain
As long as
areas.
they're the same age. Because you couldn't have states doing different tranches. It'd all have to be the same age federally on every single level, because then you'd
Yeah,
have
we're gonna do this
migration problems
science-based.
where people would like move to where they're about to be in the tranche. You definitely could not have that happening.
True. No moving.
Granted, immigration would be a big issue here because you could not just have an influx of a random people that are in your tranche now.
Suddenly they get to rule.
Suddenly they get to rule. That would be definitely has to be careful with that.
I struggle
That's
to find
interesting.
the way that you incentivize like I think your idea is to incentivize to get more representation, right? Because everybody gets like their chance. But I feel like we already struggle a lot with like caring about the future, and I feel like we need to find another way inside this to incentivize caring about the younger generation. Because I know you mentioned like, oh, you're gonna talk to your kids and stuff. It's like, but you can do that now. People don't, and we're having less kids now, and we've been killing the environment, and now like you know our most recent elected president's now going to like drill and start like the environmental protections have been pulled back now. So clearly, like the current administration and everyone who elected them doesn't care that much about the future of the next generation because they don't care about the environment as much. So how do we find a way to incentivize to consider long term as opposed to just short term goals?
Okay. Episode 5, the new currency system that incentivizes you to help other people. We're going to implement this into the city as well, where now you've got an economic system that encourages you to care about other people. And you've got a government that puts the best of those people in charge. And I think this is a form of global governance, potentially. This could be something that we could, implement on a large scale eventually.
Kind of like a social credit
Ambitious.
system.
No.
That's why he's the futurist.
I think
No,
one
I'm-
country's
no.
doing this, Sam, with
Are
the
you the futurist?
Yeah.
I think I'm the future czar.
Future czar. That's why he's the future czar. He's a dreamer.
Yeah, man. I had a thought the other day, and then I'm probably gonna log off here pretty soon unless we have anything else. But I had a thought when there's a saying, "Keep on dreaming," and it's kind of derogatory. It's like, "Oh, you're dreaming, right?" And how bullshit is that to tell somebody that it's a bad thing to dream? Like, if you aren't dreaming, if you don't have dreamers, if you don't have people thinking about what it could be, how the fuck are you ever going to find those places, right?
Amen.
Well, that's what
How
I
is that
find is
derogatory?
very
Wait, how is that derogatory?
What?
To be a
I mean,
dreamer.
I guess you
No,
could
he
say
means,
keep
like,
on
the phrase,
dreaming,
like,
kid.
keep
Dream
dreaming,
on.
kid. Like,
Dream
keep dreaming.
on is the phrase, I think.
Dream on.
Dream on.
Like, it's not gonna happen.
How is
It's
that
just a dream.
derogatory?
I don't think dream on is negative.
Yeah, he
If
means,
you
like,
if you
dream
responded
on.
if you responded to the 4-year governance system with dream on, it would be dismissive. You're
I
just
see.
dreaming.
Yeah.
There's no chance of
We're
it.
gonna
There's
have a
no
women
point in thinking
president.
about it.
Dream on.
hmm Dream on.
Dream
Yeah, right.
on.
Mhm.
Dream
I don't think
on.
I've ever heard someone say that. Be like, is that the right way to say dream on? Maybe, yeah.
I've heard it phrased that way. Dream on, kid. That'll never be reality. Keep dreaming.
I've heard that. Dream on, kid.
Dream on, kid. But hey, you're gonna be 50 years
Dream
old
on.
one day, so you'll have your chance at
No,
it now.
I love the dreaming mentality here. This is well, Matthew thinks this has been a horrible episode.
never said
I have
that.
really-
It
you
felt
said it.
disjointed.
You said it.
I said disjointed.
And you said it, and I really have enjoyed the
I'll pull the
conversation
receipts.
actually, because I think this is the type of conversation that got us started.
This
Yeah,
felt
I
like
know,
I was
I
gonna
like
say
these.
an episode 0.
No,
This
I
was an
like
episode,
these. It
episode
just
0.
felt more disjointed. It was more of a reflection on myself, as I felt like I was rambling a lot of times. But I actually have a question for you guys. This one's not as general, but did you see this thing about how OpenAI is offering people like their cryptocurrency if they give them their retinal scan?
I think that's like how they started. I heard about that when the sphere was being
They're
built.
doing it now. Yeah, they have this little sphere thing. Like it looks like something you look at an eye doctor, and they're putting them in like a couple locations around the country. They're putting one in Green Hills Mall, like one of the 5, like the one that's like 20 minutes from me. Should I do it? Should I take
Yes.
Yeah.
OpenAI's their crap cryptocurrency, so that I'll give them my retinal scan and they'll have all
That's
my
your
Let me-
ticket to
private
the
He
simulation.
doesn't want to get
Matt.
the chip, but he wants to get the retinal
Let me
scan.
set
I
this
don't.
up. Let me set
I'm
this up.
asking you, should I do it?
If I should,
on.
I don't
Hold
want
on,
to.
let
but
me set
should
this
I?
up. You're referring to the WorldCoin project
Yeah.
initiated by Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI. WorldCoin aims to establish a global digital identity system by scanning individuals' irises using a device called the Orb. In return, participants receive a unique World ID and a reward in the form of WorldCoin's cryptocurrency token WLD. Project's goal is to differentiate humans from AI in an increasingly digital world. Who would like to react first?
The reason I brought this up is because we talked about like voting, like every year, or whatever, on your phone. And it's like the only way you could do that is if you do like on the blockchain, so you trust that everything's like unique.
So do you? I mean, I personally think that it's actually a pretty good idea. That I think that we should have a way of differentiating ourselves and of creating a way of knowing that something came from me versus that you're talking to me, for example, versus an AI version of me.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, giving away my retinal scan on first thought, I have hesitation because it just sounds like I'm giving away like the one thing that makes me pretty unique, though, like physically.
Voice.
But when I think about it a little bit more, it's like they could probably get my retina if they wanted to. Probably illegally, but they could still get it if they wanted to. And I'm giving away so much of like anything that was private that at this point, like, what are they gonna do with my retinal scan? Like, what could they?
Well,
what
your
nefarious-
OnlyFans
Yeah,
is
like,
pretty
what
telling there,
nefarious
Matt.
act could they use it for? Hey, Sam, yes, you have a question.
They could simulate you.
What do you mean by that?
They could take your likeness and recreate you
Well, like digitally,
against your will.
like a avatar of myself, but
You could call it that.
a realistic looking one.
Yeah.
I mean,
probably completely indistinguishable from yourself. Have you seen how good AI image generation has gotten in the last
see
6
me like a
months?
picture. It would look like a picture of me, but
Have you
it's
seen how
AI
good
generated.
video generation has gotten in deepfakes in the
Yeah,
last 6 months?
yeah.
Like, I think we are within 3 decades of being able to create something that you wouldn't be able to tell is yourself.
Within
Uh,
3 decades?
yeah.
It'll be
Try
like
like
next
Like
year.
you would encounter a version
try
of yourself
within
that would
the
be
decade.
indistinguishable
3
from your own
months.
identity. Yeah, 3 months.
But
But I
Okay,
think
so
even now, like in a
okay,
picture, you
so
can't see my face.
interesting.
Like if you looked at a
So
picture,
you're
of me,
thinking, yeah, so it's interesting. You're saying that actually what they'll do with the retinal scan of me is embed that into the AI
Mhm,
of me,
mhm,
where there will actually be no
mhm,
distinguishable to.
Yep. And Apple has a feature where you can create a digital voice. You say like 150 phrases and it will create an artificial version of your voice.
Yeah.
That's tough.
You've got, if you're talking to chat, we talked about the blood-brain barrier between chat and your interactions with it. You're basically dumping your psyche, your consciousness into chat the more that you use it. I think that like pretty much all over the place, we've got these little fingers that are collecting, as much information, and the technological side of being able to actually reproduce that in a convincing manner is catching up to all of the data that has been collected.
doesn't Apple basically have a retina scans? But I just use my Face ID.
Yeah, they've got your
Android
facial,
was the
they
first one
can
to do
recreate
it.
your face, your
So
fingerprints.
yeah, so like OpenAI just has to do it this way because they don't have phone access. Couldn't they get it through the app? Couldn't they just be like you scan your? I guess they need a really in-depth scan, and that's why they're using this instrument as opposed to your phone. Because it's like a
I
big
I will
orb.
say I'm in favor of digital rights over your personhood. And I think that is the guise in which this project is being, introduced is like a counterbalance to introducing AI to the world is okay, now we need a way to be able to tell what's AI and what isn't. So we're going to do that by scanning your retina and using that to verify whether or not you created content. So that's like the idea, and in concept, I agree with it, and there is something necessary to be able to distinguish what's real and what's not real. Um, but I think, having a company, one that wants to be for profit, that's collecting your personal information and you're giving that up to somebody, I just think you should be extremely cautious giving up those kinds of things to other people because that's all that you have. But we talked about terms and conditions earlier, and your societal taboo if you're not into it, and so it's really hard as an individual to stay away from some of the stuff that you really should be really cautious about. Hard to even know what you should be cautious about and what you shouldn't be, and I think that ties into governance, economy, inflation, the banks, all the bullshit. It's all tied together. I got to get my string out. It all connects.
And this goes back to if it's not the retina, like next thing it'll be the DNA, and then there's 23andMe.
23andMe, yeah, they have my DNA. I told them to delete it though.
So
Did they? How many people did they give it to
who
before I
knows?
told them to delete it? Probably
Yeah,
everybody.
please chase down everybody.
I
Go get
bought
the
some.
So
DNA.
now I can't.
Yeah, some
I bought
Sam.
some DNA.
Yeah, some Rodrino DNA
Right.
over there.
I actually now own your DNA.
I own your IP.
Fuck. Fuck.
Yes.
The Sam Cressy
was
IP.
nine-
One time I have to send it.
It was
for
only-
$31.99.
Yeah, lifetime.
That's it.
It was on discount.
Bought it in
It was
bankruptcy.
one of those going out of
Is-
business
is a steal.
sales.
Yeah. It was like they said you should delete your data because we're gonna sell this as part of bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Like it was literally a fire sale of people's like DNA.
Crazy.
Oh.
Wait until the. We talked about that. I think in the last podcast, the guys who are like cloning animals. Just wait till they start doing it with
Yeah.
humans. Yeah, I wonder
Sam, we
if
we got a busy day tomorrow.
You know
We
what's
might need
interesting
to
about
log
that? I
off.
just thought about is like
Do.
now they've legalized gay marriage. Now you told me. I wonder if like gay couples will take both of their DNA and basically like create a child and have like just a surrogate. Because right now they do the surrogate thing, but they just take, I assume, just whatever, like one DNA, but they could basically take both DNA and then basically create a child of like two men.
I think women can already do, or maybe women and men can do that using stem cells. Like
Yes.
you can create the other chromosome and actually make a baby.
That's
Yeah,
above my
there's
pay
something
grade.
where they're able to yes, they can just take stem cells and use that to do IVF or something to that degree.
It's another thing, even biologically, it doesn't have to be a digital simulation. They could just literally recreate your biology. Test tube babies.
Maybe
Didn't
we
the
want
Matrix
another
say
one
that
of
it
me
was
out
a real
there.
story?
I always mix up the pills. Which one's which? Which's blue pill and which one's red pill?
I just watched this yesterday. Red pill is you see how deep the rabbit hole goes.
So blue, you say blue pill is the reality and red pill's the simulation.
Yeah. Blue pill is ignorant.
Oh, wait. So blue pill's the simulation and red pill's reality.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know.
And the decision is what?
You've never seen the
Red
Matrix?
pill to see how deep the rabbit hole goes, or blue pill, you wake up tomorrow and it'll all be like a dream.
Blue pill is a simulation. Red pill is reality.
Yeah. Yep. That's where the term red pilling comes from, because once you know the truth, you can't go back.
You ever seen the Matrix, Austin?
Maybe
Oh,
when
you
I was
should.
like 10.
You'll like the
You should
concept.
watch
For
it
some
like
time.
this week. It's very timely.
All right, I'll watch it tomorrow.
The Wachowski
Let me
brothers
know.
made it, and now they're the Wachowski sisters.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
And they said that it was a true story.
What was a true story?
The Matrix.
Both of those.
Oh.
I'm not.
Were
I remember
they-
looking this up because we watched it in film classes. Like it said the Wachowski brothers. I tried looking them up, and I'm like, these are sisters.
All right, I gotta log off. I got golf tomorrow with Big Daddy Justin over there.
You guys are golfing during
Best
the day.
of luck.
Taking a day off. Nice. On Austin's birthday. You didn't even invite him.
On my birthday, you're gonna
Ooh.
golf?
Happy birthday.
That's some BS. This is the birthday episode.
Not yet. You got 3 hours. Well, for you guys, I guess.
I was hoping we'd make it to midnight so that we could celebrate my birthday.
So someone will
I did have
celebrate
a
with
secret
him.
hope. Happy birthday!
I guess you are kind
I
of.
did. What am I gonna do with this confetti popper now?
It's not gonna be as fun when I'm by myself. Boo!
Well, you guys kicked some
All
ass on the
right.
course tomorrow in Austin. You really splurge. Buy something nice for yourself.
Go all out.
Do you get a holiday by the company? We have a floating
am
holiday.
working. I'm gonna work.
But
Most
You have a
of the
holiday for your
day.
birthday, Justin?
It's a floating holiday for religious observances or your birthday. So,
And you take it for your
I
birthday.
took it on my birthday.
or tax day. Justin does it to do his taxes.
I have a lot of tax work to make up. Taking the day off.
Did you want to
All
do
right.
a outro / intro for this one?
Let me
or-
do an outro. I'll find a funny clip for the intro. All right, well, that's going to do it for us on episode number 7 of Symposium, a beautiful Cinco de Mayo celebration. I finished my margaritas. Sam finished his tacos, as you saw. And Justin had a classic Cinco de Mayo Guinness. We had some great conversation here. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share the show with seven friends.
That's for
It
Cinco.
means that's for Cinco. It means the world to us. Also, don't forget, most important, email us symposium574@gmail.com. We will answer some, not all, of your questions. And if you have any topics you'd like to talk about, please share with us. And as always, if you're an expert in something, a real expert, please
with
let us know.
credentials.
With credentials, we're going to look at the CV. We want to have you on to educate us about some type of issue. Maybe have a little quick interview, understand about something that we probably don't know much about and learn something new, because that's the goal here. So for that, thanks for Matthew. Thanks for staying awake through this boring episode. Justin,
What about our
thanks
sponsors?
for our sponsors. We didn't have any this episode. They
tell
all
everybody
canceled.
The
on us.
Titanic.
The Titanic.
Duke's Mayo? Did they
Yeah,
cancel?
Duke's Mayo.
Okay.
Duke's Mayo, the best mayo.
No, I thought it was I thought it was Netflix in their new film Titanic 2.
Oh, Titanic 2. I'm going on a cruise in June, so maybe I'll be featured.
I think there
so-
was a Titanic 2, actually.
And
Titanic 2.
how was it?
Same
Back
thing
from the
happened. Didn't
dead.
get nearly as much publicity.
Justin was able to come away from his salmon and champagne and caviar dinner for a little bit to chat with us, so that was nice of him. And Sam unfortunately wasn't able to afford sleeves tonight, but other than that, we're all here. We really enjoyed the
120
conversation.
pounds raw muscle, baby.
Raw muscle. He'll be back with more next time. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on episode number 8.
We've been talking since the 5th grade, and somehow we've got more to say. Beat kicks in faster rhythm. Inflation's high, the game's too steep. Stream wars rage while we lose sleep. Big tech's wild, the Fed's a mess, but let's start a party, I guess. Symposium, where tangents thrive. Old friends talking, the takes collide. Symposium, no wrong or right, just good conversation deep into the night. Yeah, we're still talking.